Looks okay? Okay.
That's perfect.
All right. Okay, so, oops, got it. All right, so as you know, agriculture uses water for various purposes. It can be for stock watering, it can be for irrigating crops, it can be for processing of your products. And where do we get that water? It comes from a variety of sources. It can come from surface water sources like rivers or lakes, creeks, or springs. And it could also come from groundwater. So if you have a well that you take water from, or dugouts that are even partially filled with water from the ground, then that constitutes groundwater. So in this presentation, I'm assuming everyone here has to get a license, and that license is going to be for existing use. That's a bit of a different application process than with the new use of water, so water that started after 2016. But overall, it's a very similar process, so please stay on if that applies to you, because your questions will still apply. So the Water Sustainability Act is why we now license groundwater. It came into effect on February 29th, 2016. And that brought a few changes to its predecessor, which was the Water Act. And a main change that it brought was an added requirement to license groundwater use. Under the WSA, agricultural producers are required to license their use, whether that's from surface water or groundwater, and whether that's for irrigation, stock watering, or processing purposes. There's a few main types of licenses that you can apply for under the Water Sustainability Act, or the WSA. So there's surface water or new use of groundwater, and both of those would fall under the category of a new water license on the Front Counter BC website. And then there's existing use groundwater, which means your groundwater use started before the enactment of the WSA in 2016 and has continued since then. So one thing that's important to note is that before the WSA came into effect, groundwater users actually couldn't apply for a license. So the province built in a transition period to give those existing users the opportunity to be recognized. And I think that's probably those of you here today who are attending for following the application purpose. So existing groundwater users have to apply by March 1st of this year. That's just about a month away. And after that date are going to be unable to apply for existing use. After that, they'll be considered new users of groundwater. So a few things: by applying before the deadline, the application fee gets waived. So that's $250. And your historic rights, your priority date, gets recognized. So if you started using the water in 1970, you can have that use, that priority date. So that would be used in the event that the province starts going by first in time, first in right in a case of drought or water scarcity. So it's very advantageous to the user to have this in place, especially with climate change and the changes that we're seeing. The hotter summers coming and drier periods. And then another major advantage of applying for existing use groundwater is that there's less scrutiny on your application when you put it into Front Counter BC. And that's because the impacts of water use that has already been taking place for some time have generally already been felt in terms of the impacts to streams, aquifers, and other users. So if the province is going to consider your use new use, you might have to provide some additional information to support that water is available. And that could be costly in some cases. You might have to hire a consultant to do an assessment. It's just added cost and added time as well. So there's some common elements between the different types of water licenses that I mentioned earlier. There's the date of precedence. So that's, again, that's used in cases where FITFR is applied, or first in time, first in right. For existing use groundwater, that's the priority date is your date of first use. But then for new use, that's usually the date the application is accepted by Front Counter BC. For then there's also the water use purpose. So every license is tied to the type of water use you're for the reason you're using water use. So that can be for livestock watering, that can be for irrigation, it can be for both, it can be for a variety of things. So both, like, several purposes can appear on a license. There's also the quantity of water, the volume that's used for each purpose, the period of use that you can use that water for. So for instance, livestock use, you might use it 365 days a year, in which case your period of use would be January 1st to December 31st. Or it can be for irrigation. Let's say April 1st to September 30th is the common period that we would see on a license. Then there's also going to be an appurtenancy, or a land parcel that's attached to that license. So your license applies for that parcel of land and will go with that land parcel as it gets sold and purchased. Then there's the works. Works can be your well, irrigation system, pipes that direct your water, any pumps that you're using to take water out of the well. There's also terms and conditions on the license. These are, every license comes with its terms and conditions. So that's not only the things that I named above, but can also be, for instance, that the license, the terms and conditions of the license do not supersede any other municipal, they don't supersede the jurisdiction of any other regulation. And then there's the license also comes with an annual fee. For existing use, that fee gets dated back to 2016 when the Water Sustainability Act came into effect, because your water has been used since that legislation was put in place. And that would be the same for if someone applied for a new use license and was granted it in 2016. They would have been paying since that time as well. Okay, so any questions on the history of groundwater regulation? Great, okay. So I'll jump into what we need before we begin an application. So before you start your application, you're going to want to apply for a BC EID, a BC electronic identification, and that is going to give you secure access to online government services. Doing this is going to allow you to save your application to the Front Counter BC website, so you can come back if you need to, rather than having to do it all in one sitting. Because if you don't log in this way, then you'll have to come back. I'll just pause my presentation here for a second, and I can show you what that website looks like. Whoops. So this is the main BC ID website. And if you just scroll down, what you're going to want to do is register for a basic BC ID. That's this one here. And then you click on it and you just fill out the registration, and it's instant once you submit the application. You'll just have to fill out your profile in there as well. So once you have that, just write down your username and password so that you can use it once you start your actual application process. Okay, so then we'll go into, there's a few pieces of information and documents that you should really get together and have in front of you and save to your computer before starting the process. There's the BC assessment. Everyone's going to have this. You can find it. It might have come recently for most of you. I know I got mine in the mail recently. Have it with you, this one with you, or like next to your computer. You can have a scanned copy to your computer. You're going to need the information off here. That's going to be the property identifier or your PID, the legal description of your property and the owner's names for your property, and the address. So a lot of times there might be like your spouse might be on there as well and part owner of the farm. So if you're not the sole owner of the farm, you're going to need an owner's agreement so that they can show that the other owners of that property are agreeing to the license being applied for. They don't have to personally apply. They just have to agree that they're okay with you applying for it. So the recommendation is to have that owner's agreement letter signed off in advance and have it ready to upload to the system when required. I'll show you an example of what an owner's agreement letter might look like and some sample wording as well in a few slides. Other ways to get the owner's approval, you can do it through email through the application itself or through the application process itself. But considering we're coming pretty close to the deadline, my recommendation is just to get a letter signed and upload that, because relying on someone to answer their email might not be as efficient in some cases. So you're welcome to do either way. And then there's the history of proof of first use of groundwater. So generally this is the well construction report. I'll show you how to get that through the BC Agriculture Water Calculator, which is going to link you to the government, the groundwater wells and aquifer database. So you can get it through there, or if you have a paper copy of it, you can also scan it, save it to your computer, and that's what you can upload. If you don't have a well construction report, you can also get a signed letter that can be signed by yourself, or you can have a neighbor sign it for you, and that's just going to state, to the best of your knowledge, the well was constructed in this year and has been used since then. And then finally, there's the BC Agriculture Water Calculator. This provides a really good summary of basically all the information that you're going to have to enter. Well, maybe not all of the information, but the vast majority of information you're going to have to enter into the actual application process. It's going to have your water use purpose, volume estimation, areas to be irrigated, the type of crop, details of the works, all the things that a water officer is probably looking for on their side to help them understand where you got your volume from and help them justify your water use. So this really facilitates answering a lot of questions that are asked in the license application, and is going to help the water officer who's working on the technical review of your file. So that giving them that information might help them not have to reach out to you afterwards to get further clarification. So give them as much information as possible. So what I'll do now is I'll actually go through the BC Agriculture Water Calculator first with you, and then I'll give you some examples of what these other documents look like. So. Okay, and I'll be following along with a step-by-step guide that Amanda can share with you after the presentation, or she can share it with you with the recording when that time comes. so that if you want to follow along with this recording afterwards, you can kind of do so in the same step-by-step way that's written down for you. So this is the BC Agriculture Water Calculator. There's a few ways that you can find your property on here. You can either zoom in just by scrolling or by using the touch buttons on the upper left-hand side, or you can type in your address or your property identifier. So I'm going to use my colleague's farm that's up in Hazelton. Okay, so it zoomed right in on that. And the next step is going to be, you can either look at it just this basic way, but I prefer looking at the satellite view, because then you can actually see, kind of give yourself an estimation of where, if you're irrigating fields, it's really helpful to look at it this way, because then you'll be able to just kind of draw over those. So we'll look at the wells first. So if there's a blue dot on your property, that represents a registered well that you can click. It's going to give you some well information. The well tag number is here, the registered depth of the well. So just to be clear, registration is different than licensing. So well being registered just means that the province knows about the well, but they don't know how much water is actually coming from it. And then doing the licensing actually will help them apply a purpose, use, and quantity to that for better water management. So here there's also a button to get your well report. So if you click that button, it's going to bring you to this Groundwater Wells and Aquifers database. This is a provincial website with well registration details. So it gives you the well tag number here and greater detail than you would see in that little pop-up box that I just showed you. It gives you the street address. This gives you the latitude and longitude, so your coordinates. There's the construction date here. Sometimes that's not available in the record. Sometimes it's a very limited record in here. It gives you sometimes what the well looks like underground. So the well log, they call this. And then if you scroll right down to the bottom, there's a section called documents. Sometimes this is available, sometimes it's not. This would usually be your well construction record or well construction report. So you can open that, take a look at it, and you can download it. So I'm in the Chrome browser right now. So if I wanted to download it, I could just press this little down arrow and then would pop up with an option to save it somewhere or just download it. So we'll open a save as. I've already saved it, so I won't do it again. Oops, let's go back to, sorry, the little drop down just popped up for me. I'd also recommend saving this screen as well, especially if you don't have that document attached, and you can do that just by pressing this print button, and you can, instead of printing it, you save as a PDF. And you can save it to, I'd suggest saving all of your documents to a common folder on your desktop or somewhere on your computer before you start, just so that everything's in one place for you to look up. So you can save this as well. And then if when you go in there, you notice that there's some information that's incorrect, you can actually submit some feedback about the well right here. And this is gonna allow you to write in some notes on what's wrong with that well record. Okay, so clicked on that. Now, what we're going to do is, so when you do your application process, something it's going to ask for is a plan, a map or a plan of what your water use looks like. So where your well is, what the irrigated area is, just to give the water officers an idea of where water is being used. And another reason is because with your license, they're going to be providing a map or a plat, it's called, that kind of identifies where your licensed works are and where water is being used. So what the parcel of land that you're using water on. So this tool, the water calculator, actually has a feature called Make a Diagram. So we're going to jump to that. And something that can be useful for you is to actually take the well, even if you have a blue dot on here already and your well's already registered, and especially if you don't have one that's already registered on there, you're going to select the well tool and you're going to place that well where it needs to be. So I've just overlapped with the one that's already there. This is an interesting trick because when you are going to generate a report from the agriculture water calculator, then you're going to have the location of that well show up and it's going to be on your report and you'll be able to just refer to that when you're putting in information. So we'll put a description of this well too, so that water officers know what well we're referring to. So the description will be irrigation well. And if you know the depth, you can put that, I think, what's the well depth on this one? 295 feet, this one. Okay, and then you can just close that and it's going to save the information. If you want to go back to the information, just click it again and it's going to show up. If you want to move that well, you can just click on it and drag it. I'll just put it back there. Next, we'll draw our irrigated area. So again, in the Make a Diagram, you're going to go down to, there's like a little green box with hash lines through it. And we're going to just draw our area. So you click to start drawing. It gives you some directions as you go. So click to place the next point. So we'll just draw an irrigated area here and double click to close. That area right now it's in square meters. So in your application, it's going to ask you for things in hectares. So I'd recommend changing this right here to hectares so it's easy for you to interpret. It's an automatic conversion tool. And then you can put a description in. So we can say blueberries, for instance. Now, on this farm, I also have maybe a barn. So I'll put that as a dwelling or building in here. And I'll put that just, let's put that here. This is barn. And for each of these points, it's going to give a location as well if it's a point feature. Okay, so we've done the irrigated area, we've put in a barn, we've put in a well. Now what next thing to do is to put in the water pipeline that's going to deliver water from your well to your irrigated field and the barn. So we'll click on your well as the starting point. We're going to run that through the field and maybe it just kind of jumps down and then over to your barn and double click to end the point. The description on this, just to be clear, you don't have to put every single pipe that runs through your farm, not every single drip line, nothing like that. Water officers are usually just looking for the main pipeline, and that's what's going to go on your license. So this is going to be the main pipeline. That's what I've named it. Okay, so now we have a drawing of our irrigated area, our livestock use, our well, and our pipeline. So we have everything that we need. If you want to add extra information, you can. You can put in text here too to make it really clear on the drawing that, or on this map, that this is the well. You can put a trough, if you want one, a dugout, anything like, and any of these additional features you can draw in there. So next we'll go to the actual calculation of your water use. So under irrigation, so you notice right now it doesn't have anything shown, nothing is showing up. That's because I haven't clicked an actual parcel of land. So this is the parcel of land that I want. You just click it. It's going to highlight it in blue. And it's going to show you how many acres here are available for irrigation. So that's the total parcel size, but we're not irrigating the whole thing. We're irrigating, some of you may be irrigating your entire property, in which case that's okay. But right now we're just irrigating this green area. So already I've forgotten what that was. You can just click on that green area again. It's 9.9 hectares. So I'm going to put in here, I'm going to change this to hectares. And I'm going to say, oops, sorry, 9.9 hectares. And we said this is blueberries. And the soil is just, you can choose any crop type you want. That crop type is actually going to affect how much water gets calculated. Same with the irrigation type. This is going to change how much water gets calculated. The soil, you can leave that as the default. This is what we know through the provincial soil registry. If you know it's different than that, then feel free to change that. You can alter it if you'd like. Our irrigation type, I'm going to say we're doing drip irrigation. There's the growing season as well. So up here in Hazelton, the growing season is generally shorter. This is in large part calculated based on climate data, climate averages. So right now, you can change this, as I mentioned briefly earlier. Usually water officers can give you April 1st to September 30th. So we can change that here if we'd like, but if your irrigation period is much shorter than that, then put what you need or what you generally use. So we'll put April 1st to September 30th, just as kind of the standard. And then it's gonna, it automatically calculates the volume of water that you need, the peak flow rate. This is something that's gonna show up on your report as well, and something that's really good to include in your application. And then field your total water demand needed for that irrigated area in meters cubed. You can change, again, you can change what you want to show it in, but meters cubed is what water officers are going to use on your license. So if you have more than one irrigated field in here, so let's say we drew over this bottom field as well, you can add another field to this and go through the same process. And then it's going to calculate each field individually and then the total at the bottom. Then we'll jump over to livestock because we said we had a barn maybe with some cows in it. So let's say we have some milking cows. And it knows, the calculator has a standard daily water demand for those, for whatever type of animal you choose. There's a variety of animals to choose from here. Number of animals, we're going to say we'll just be a small dairy farm and have 20 cows. We need that for 365 days a year. You can also, just like you can add an extra field, you can add another type of animal here just by clicking this button. So it's again going to give you a peak flow rate and your annual water demand for all the livestock. And we'll put this just so it's consistent in cubic meters. So everything's the same. Let's see. Okay, and now so just to recap, we made a diagram. We got our well record from the BC Ag Water Calculator. We showed our irrigation. We calculated our livestock. Now we're going to go over to save report. And we're going to choose the annual irrigation water demand and your annual livestock water demand. And we're going to generate that report. So click generate. It might take a couple minutes to do. Okay, and you can click that and you can take a look at what that looks like. So it's going to have all the information. It has your property identifier there, your total hectares on your property. Here's the irrigation calculation. Again, all this information here is really useful to the water officer when they're going through your application and the technical review, because it helps them understand where you actually got that calculation from. It's not just a guess, and they know it's based on a reputable tool that's been created for this purpose for the government. And the livestock use. And then you even have your plan. So you can attach this plan right to your application process, right to the application as well. And that will fulfill that requirement. And then all the points that you put in. So your well, it has the coordinates, the depth, and it just has the information that they need to describe each one of your works and the areas on your land. Okay, so you've saved that. You can save it to whatever folder you're using on your desktop to save your application and documents. I think I've already saved one of these. Let me just double check on my end. I will now. So let's, I'll just get it from the downloads here. Okay. So I have that. Now we're going to jump back to our presentation. Oops. Oh, okay. There we go. Okay, so sorry, I'll actually ask if there's any questions about the BC Agriculture Water Calculator before I move forward. Anyone?
Feel free to unmute yourself if you do have any questions at the moment, so don't be shy. We do have enough time to pause for a few questions if you have any at this point.
Tara, thanks for the presentation, Tara. I was just wondering, do we have to include like a previous well that we used and now we not using anymore because we have a new well?
What you can do is if you've abandoned that well, you can place a point. I'll show you here back on the make a diagram. You can actually place a well, like let's say your old well is here. Mm-hmm. You can actually write in the description abandoned. Or if there had been a well point there that's still registered, you can do the same thing, kind of put a point over it, abandoned, just so they know. And then you can write some notes in your application as well that that old well has been replaced with this new one.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
So something to note on that though is that what water officers might also be looking for is that that well is drilled into the same aquifer as your old well, because that would be the same source. So they want to make sure that you're using water from the same source as you had been previously. So if it's if like your well, you just built a new well because the old one was falling apart, then that would be the same source.
And so say again, how do I make that known to them that it's the same aquifer that we drilled into?
They'll you can just make a note, like it's you might not know, like your if you look at your well records, you might have them to approximately the same depth, and then they're probably in the same aquifer. Usually if you're re-drilling too, it's usually close to the original one. So you can do that, but otherwise the water officer during their technical review is going to help determine that.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, no worries.
I have a question. Sure. It may have been answered because I was late, but is this just for irrigation? If your domestic water use is also attached to that well, do you have, is that information you want or need?
Great question. So domestic water use actually can't be licensed for groundwater. Surface water, you can have a domestic use purpose, but for groundwater, domestic use does not get licensed at this time. So if you can write on here that, like, instead of just writing irrigation well, you can write irrigation plus domestic. But ultimately, they're not going to license your domestic use. They will just be whatever volume is calculated.
The amount of water that you need, however, goes up if you have, you know, your major residents on that well too as well, right?
It will, but not significant enough for them to.
No, I know
It because
it's a
they
lot less than irrigation.
Yeah, it's a lot less than irrigation, and there is a certain volume that that they apply to domestic use that they just assume is your domestic use. It's fleeting me right now. Carla, can you tell me what the volume is? Is it
it's 2 cubic meters per day.
there you go. Okay.
It used to be 500 gallons a day, and then when they converted it, they just rounded it to 2 cubic meters instead of using the decimals.
Thanks, Carla.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how much they would attribute to your domestic use. So there, yeah, just apply for your irrigation because they're just assuming your domestic use is going to use that much. Okay. Okay, I'll move right along with the presentation. Okay, so as I mentioned before, you'd also need, if you can have a copy of this handy, your BC assessment or your property tax notice. It doesn't have to, it could be last year's copy too. This is going to provide the landowner's names that are on the title, the address, and the property identifier. And so those have to, what you put in the application is going to have to match what it says in here. Okay. And then there's an owner's agreement letter if you're more than one owner on the property title. So if it's a husband and wife, for example, or you know, 2 siblings who own the property together, you'll need to list each owner's name, then a short sentence that states something like what's written here: the above named persons are joint owners of this farm or at this address and agree to apply for a water license for our farm located at, and then say the street address. Then you're going to list the owner's contact details, their name, address, phone number, email. If they don't have one of these, then that's okay too, just a contact point for them. And then they're going to need to sign this document as well to agree to you doing the application process. Okay, and then if there's no well construction report available, you can provide a signed affidavit letter or statement. You can either, if you don't have a well construction report, something that you could do is contact your well driller if you know who the well driller is and try to get that well record from them. Otherwise, you can provide a letter just like this instead of a well construction report. You could also use like as proof of first use, you could provide a scanned copy of a pump installation receipt. So if we know that, you know, a pump was installed, you know, it was probably installed the same year as the well was constructed and started being used. So that can help support your priority date as well. And then if provincial water officers, if they have any questions, they'll be in touch with you. If they need more information about this or need a little bit more evidence, then they'll contact you. But generally, a self-signed statement is fine. You could also get your neighbor to sign something like this. So to the best of my knowledge, the groundwater well was installed in 1978 and the water use began on July 1st. The water was used for this many, for 100 beef cattle and irrigating a 20-acre field. Those are different numbers than I used in the agriculture water calculator, but you get the idea of what it can be phrased like. So the important part with this is to write when you started using the water and that the water has been used since that date. Okay, so I'll go right into the application now. So, oops, where am I here? Okay, so if you can either take down this, this website address, or you can just Google Front Counter BC water application, or just application. And the first results is probably going to bring you to this home screen. And we're going to apply now. So there's a lot of different choices as to what you can apply for. So it's not letting me click for some reason. Okay, there we go. There's a lot of different choices here, and quite a few for water license. So just be careful that if you're applying for existing use groundwater, which is you were using water before March of 2016, that you click water license existing use groundwater, not water license new, because that's a different application, existing use groundwater. So we'll click that and click apply. Then it's going to ask you how you heard about this. Let's say social media, and submit. Okay, so now it's going to bring you to this first introductory page. You can apply without a BC ID, not recommended. And then there's apply with your BC ID. So we're going to click this one because we want to be able to do it in more than one sitting if we've forgotten something and want to come back to it, or run out of time and want to come back. So click apply. I'm going to put in my information here. Okay, so now we're at the first page of the application. I'm just going to scroll in my step-by-step guide. Okay, you're going to click yes. You can read through these. Are you the owner of a land or mine in British Columbia where the well will be used? Probably. You can read through these questions. Excuse me. Okay, so we'll just click yes and go to the next step. Now, at any point throughout the process, you can save the application. It's going to save it to your BCID account, and you can go back to it at a later time if you need to. Okay, so the next step is starting with the technical information. So we're going to click, do you use groundwater for non-domestic purpose, which is the purpose of your existing use groundwater. So yes, it's a non-domestic purpose. And did your groundwater use begin on or before February 29th, 2016? So this is checking that you actually qualify for existing use groundwater and not a new use application. So we're going to say yes. And we can say next. The next one is whether you qualify for government and First Nation fee exemption. I don't apply for any of these. I'm going to say no and next. Okay, next. This is the purposes of water use. So here we're going to add our purpose. So just click the add purpose button. Can you see the window that just popped up for me? Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
I can.
Great. Okay, so what purpose do you want to use water for? I'm going to say, okay, irrigation is going to be my first one. And so for every purpose, there are several sub-purposes. And for irrigation, we're just going to say it's straight irrigation. And do you want to use the water only seasonally? And here it actually refers you to using the BC Agriculture Water Calculator to help determine the required quantity. And yeah, I'm only going to use it seasonally for For irrigation, I'm going to use it from April to September. And your total annual quantity, I'm just gonna, now you can go to the folder and the report that you just generated using the BC Agriculture Water Calculator. And you can take a look at that. So I'm gonna open mine up on my side screen here. So my total annual quantity for irrigation is 18,080 cubic meters per year. And the area to be irrigated is 9.9 hectares. And the max rate of diversion, we're going to do, that's going to be the peak flow rate that you got. This is in, I should have changed the peak flow rate on my hold on, unit conversion tool. We want a volume here, and that's going to be, oh, sorry, gallons per minute. $140, and we're going to put that to, oh, what was it asking for there in the window? Oops. It's asking for meters cubed per second. Cubic meters per second, convert. So we have 0.01, I'll just put 0.01. Okay, so then it's going to ask you, how did you estimate your water use? You can say BC Agriculture Water Calculator. And so you'll notice here, it just says April to September. It doesn't actually refer to an actual day of that month. So you can also identify that here, the specific date that you would use it to. So April 1st to September 30th. If you want, you can, what's also helpful is putting in any pertinent details from your actual water demand report, but you can say, refer to water demand report provided for additional details. Something like that. Carla, is there anything else that you would recommend adding in here?
No, I think that's everything. You've covered it.
Okay. So we'll save that. Oh, I'll just close the unit conversion tool. Back to the application here. So you'll see now irrigation has showed up here. Now we can add another purpose. This one can be livestock. So this is going to fall under industrial. And the sub-purpose is livestock and animal. And this isn't going to be seasonally. This is going to be your total annual quantity because we're using the water year round. But if you only use it for a specific period, then you can show that. So the total annual quantity for livestock for us was 950 cubic meters per year. Type of stock, dairy. Quantity, we had 20 animals. And well, we can just leave the maximum rate of diversion blank here. And then for this estimate, you say 20 milking cows, BC Agriculture Water Calculator. Okay. And then you save that and it's going to show up here as well. So something to note is that there are fees associated with each of these. There's the rental fee, and there's an application fee. You'll notice the application fee is waived because we're doing an existing use groundwater license. If this was a new use application, you'd see an application fee here. What you do see here is a rental fee. So as I mentioned earlier, the rental fee is dated back to 2016 because you have been using water since the legislation took effect and prior to, but they're only charging you from when it was enacted. And there's actually a note on here that says exactly that. So, so once you've added your purposes and the volumes used for each, you can go to the next step. Okay. So we've added those. So next is the history of your water use. So pick the date when water use began for each of your water use purposes. So you can, for livestock, let's say we used both of them starting when the well was drilled in 1978. So we can just say January 1st, and you can change if it's too much to kind of click like way back on these little arrows for the year. You can actually just change it manually as well, I think. Or not. Okay. Let's go back in time. There we go, 1978 and January 1st. And then irrigation, we're gonna say, just for simplicity of showing you, you can do a different date too. Maybe you actually 1992 is when we started irrigating. Maybe April 1st, 1992 is when irrigation started. Livestock used in or started 1992 and 1978 since well was constructed, and irrigation followed in 1992. So you can say something like that, or maybe you started everything at the same time and you can just say water has been used since the well was constructed in 1978. Okay, and so it's going to say upload any documents you have to support the date the water use began. So that can be your well construction report, and that's what you're going to upload here, or your signed statement, whichever one you have. So we're going to upload the file. Choose a file here. I'll upload. Where's my? We'll put the well record that I downloaded. Okay, and description, this is well construction report. So you can just describe this however, whatever document that you are uploading here, well construction report or signed statement, whatever applies. And upload. Okay, so now that's uploaded. You'll see that that shows up here, and we'll go on to the next step. Okay, now we're going to put in the works. So there's, again, like a long list of different works that you can add in here. We're going to say we have a pipe. We're going to have an irrigation system. You'll see automatically this defaults to fully constructed. So this is existing use. So we're assuming that all the works are already in place. If you had a new use license, then you would change this to not constructed or maybe partly constructed. But for existing use, everything should be fully constructed. You might have a pump. might have a pump house, and yeah, we'll save it at that: irrigation system, pipe, pump, and pump house. Okay, and you can provide any details that you feel are relevant. We'll just say next. Okay. And do you access your groundwater from a well? We're going to say yes. We're going to add our well. We're going to get another pop-up here. Okay, so this is going to ask you for details about your well. So you can again refer to the well construction report that you have downloaded, or the well information that's available on the GWells website. And you can also name this the same as what you used in your BC Agriculture Water Calculator report. So I named mine the irrigation well. So that's what I'm going to use here. The well tag number is, I have that saved on my well construction report. That's 39916. So you'll notice here there's also a well ID plate number. So the two are different in that the well tag number is more of a record number, whereas the well ID plate number is that little plate that appears on the outside of a well. So it's a little metal plate with a number on it. So that's your well ID plate number. You can also look things up that way. So if you know that, but you don't know your well tag number, you can use that here too. And then the depth of the well, I have 295 feet. Make sure you use the correct units here. The method of local measurement, you can say other and just say BC water calculator. And then you can put the latitude in. Sorry, I'll just open it here. So again, remember I put that well point into my BC Agriculture Water Calculator report, and that gave me on my report the actual or some location. So 55 latitude, and the longitude is okay. And is the well a flowing artesian well at any time of year? We'll say no. It might be for you. I know in Langley there are some artesian aquifers, so if you need to, you can write that. That just means water is continuously flowing out of the well. Is the well head in a pit or a sump? Say no. And then you're going to upload your well construction report here. Again. Okay, choose file. Sorry, it's taking a bit. Okay, and we'll just put that same one in. Oh, sorry, I forgot the description. Okay, now upload. Okay, so we have all that information. Now you can put in any additional comments that that you want to here. and save. And again, like with the water use purposes, you can add multiple wells here as well. So if you have 4 wells on your property, you can add them all in. Okay, and are there any other wells on the property that are not in use? So the question earlier about if a well is abandoned, you can answer yes here and add some notes in about that well. Okay, so we'll say no for the purpose of this application. Okay, next is questions about joint works. So are there other people who are connected to the same works as you and using that water? I'll say no, but if there is, you can provide, it's your choice whether you provide a joint works agreement. That's recommended just in case one of the parties sells their properties and then in the future there might be some conflicts about their access to water. So we're going to say no, but you could say yes and provide a joint works agreement if you'd like. Okay, and then for mapping, again, with the BC Agriculture Water Calculator, we created a map with our report. So I have maps saved to my computer and I wish to provide these with my application. This is really going to help your application process. If you don't provide a map, then someone is definitely going to be in touch with you asking you for one. Okay, and oh, in this case, we can actually drag a file. I'll just drag my agriculture water calculator report over, or you can click the add files button. Okay, oh, start upload. Sorry, I forgot the description here. So you can just say BC Agriculture Water Calculator report map and start the upload. So once you click the start upload, it's pretty quick. Or maybe that's just my internet. Okay, so we have that saved and we've uploaded that file. And now we're just going to click next to go on to the next step, which is the land details of where water is going to be used. So we're going to add land information. What is the category of your land ownership? I'm going to say this is private land. And then this is where your BC assessment notice or your tax assessment notice comes into play. So I'm going to open that on my other screen. I know this is 1015. So you're going to enter your PID, which is 015. And then the legal description, this is going to also appear on your BC tax assessment. Okay, I'm just going to say district lot 149. Usually it's something long and strange like this, legal jargon in it. Okay, and there you go. I don't think you need to. I don't think you need to upload a certificate here, but if you have a land certificate title number, then you can. And we'll save. Okay. Next, you can attach any relevant documents. So here you have a permission to occupy Crown land. So if you do occupy Crown land, you might need, if you said yes, for instance, you might need a permit over Crown land tenure, or a special use permit, and that should already be in place to use it. I'm going to say no for the purposes of this. If you said yes and you know your permit number, then you can write that in the notes too. Are there other lands that are physically affected by your works? You're going to say no. Okay, and then document upload. So if there's any other relevant documents that you haven't already uploaded in previous steps, then you would do that here. So this would be, so joint works agreement or private lease. You can put in your, no, and there's another section where you would put in your owner's agreement letter. So here, we've already put in our drawing to scale. What we're going to do here, upload again is maybe your BC Agriculture Water Calculator report, just so it's clear that this is your water calculation. Start that upload. And you can upload here. Oh, sorry. This is a drawing to scale or other. And if you want here, just to be safe, you can put in your owner's agreement as well. Okay, so I'm going to put in my owner's agreement form. Okay, so we have safely uploaded those, and then we're going to go to the next step. Oh, sorry, I forgot the type of document for that one. Now we're good. Okay, next is a privacy declaration. You're going to have to check this off, otherwise you won't be able to continue with your application. Okay, then the application information, if approved, will the authorization be issued to an individual or company organization? You can say an individual. Are you the individual this application is going to be issued to? Then yes. Okay, so my information automatically comes up here. This is my contact information. You can edit it if you need to. And then if there's co-applicants, there's co-applicants on this, I'm going to say yes. And that's where that owner's agreement letter is going to come into play. And do they consent to providing their name, address, and do they consent to having this application done? We're going to say yes. Okay. And then we can move on to our next page. Okay, and you're going to add an individual. So these are all the co-applicants. So there's going to be me. And we're also going to add, who is my co-applicant? We're going to say Carla is my co-applicant. Okay, and it's going to ask you for this information anyways. So sorry, Carla. We own property together now. There we go. So then we're going to go on to next. Okay, and you have, this is information that's going to be used to contact the applicant if there's questions on the application. So this again is going to be myself. And I consent to the disclosure of the information. So you have to make sure that you check that off. Okay. So you'll notice that here there's a green box that says there's no errors with your application. If there's anything that you missed, like a box on the previous page that you didn't check, like I consent to this, then it's going to give you a fix notification and it's going to redirect you to that page. Okay, so once you're here, we're going to look over the application form. I would suggest clicking this application form. It's a PDF, and saving this actually to that same folder that you've been saving all your application details to. You'll get a glimpse of what your application is going to look like on the other side. This is the application that's ready to be submitted. Just all the questions that you've answered summarized here. Okay. And whoa. Where's my... Okay, and then once you've saved that, you can click next. Now it's looking, because I said I have co-applicants, now it's looking for their signatures. So again, there's different ways to do this. You can actually compose an email, send it to them, and then their email response through this is actually going to check them off as having signed and approved the application. Or you can upload your document. So I'm going to say I have my owner's agreement. Okay, and again, write the description. Anything that has that little red star next to it, you have to fill out. Otherwise, it's not going to let you go forward. Owner's agreement form. Okay, and same with this. I guess I didn't have to put my own name in here. Go. Whoops. Okay, we have that uploaded. And now you can just say next. Oh, okay, so this is what I'm talking about. There's a little fix notification here. Personal information hasn't been entered for everyone, so click here to do so. It's going to bring you back. So I didn't put in Carla's phone number. They need some contact method. Okay. And you have to add an address. I'll just put in, oops. Okay. Just auto-filled for me, so that's good. Save that. And same with my own. Okay. There we go. Okay, now, so unfortunately it takes you right back to that step. So you have to go through the other ones again, but that's okay. We know we did everything already. It doesn't make you re-upload anything when it brings you back, you just have to keep clicking next if you forgot to do that. Okay, and then we're at step 10, which is declaration, saying that this is complete to the best of my knowledge. Check it off and click next. Okay, and then once you select next here, all your application data is locked. You're not going to be able to change it anymore. So we're going to say yes, we're satisfied with everything. And then you're going to see this fee breakdown. This is the payment page. You'll see these are the items, your balance. So it's $50 a year for the irrigation volume that I entered, and it's $50 a year for the livestock volume that I entered. $50 is the basically the minimum fee for irrigation and livestock. And then you're going to choose your method of payment and select the office that you wish to submit the application to. There's these 5 main ones. I would be to Surrey. I'm not going to submit this because I don't want to have to pay for a fake application. And if there's any other information you would like them to know, you can enter that here. So anything that you think might be pertinent to the application. And then that's it. Once you've chosen your credit card or anything like that, it will come up with additional buttons to click. And that's the process. So if you've saved it, what I'll show you is if you're still logged into your BCEID account, if you go to My Applications, it's going to actually show you, this is the one that we were just doing, this first one. This was another one that I was practicing on. So you can open that again and take a look at it. And also, once you've actually submitted it, this is the page you're going to go to see what the status is on your file. So you'll see like another table under here that shows that, for instance, the status of the application is in progress, or it's in, what are some of the things that it says? I think it's, yeah, in progress or initial review by staff, that type of thing. So that's where you would go to check on the status of your application. As long as you're logged into your BCID account, you can check that in there. And that brings me to the end of the demonstration. Does anyone have any questions? Actually, Carla, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Not that I can think of right now. Did you mention I was unable to put the guide document in the chat box there, but I did send it to Amanda. So hopefully we can send that out to everybody so they can have the steps to go through.
Perfect, thanks.
Yes. There are 2 people that have joined us that I don't have contact information for. So with that email, that email still in the chat box, please, if you want that information forwarded to you, just send me a quick email to that Langley Farmers Institute at gmail.com, and I will make sure I forward the rest of it to you.
Great. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, I do. I don't know if you can hear me or whether this is even working.
Yep.
The cost is minimum there of $50 a year, and this goes back to 2016. Is that correct?
That's right.
And is there an actual fee for the initial license?
And no, so it's just this rental fee that is dating back to 2016. So if you were to apply for a new license, you would, number one, have to pay that application fee, which is $250, and then you wouldn't be able to use the water until that license application is approved.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Anything unclear to anyone? Or that needs clarification?
Okay. So I'm going to stop our recording.
Sure.
Thank you for